Welcome to Changing Rooms, brought to you by our good friends at Elect, where a few of us ex-pros bring you stories from the pitch and beyond. I'm Barrie McDermott. I will be joined every week by Adrian Morley and Shaun Lunt, legends, mates, and proof that life after rugby is full of lessons, laughs, and the odd knock-on along the way. Together we talk about challenges, change, and what keeps us moving forward on the field, at work, and in life. So let's get stuck in. Hello and welcome back to Changing Rooms, brought to you by our good friends at Elect. Adrian, Shaun.
Morning.
Our third episode. You feeling up to it?
Feeling up to it, mate. Yes, looking forward to it.
Yeah, still got plenty in the tank, Shaun?
Oh, plenty, sir.
Good on you. Well, listen, we're halfway through and today we're going to cover off teamwork and being stronger together. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to ask you about your best teammate, because travelling in and out, being in a working environment, being in a changing environment, you really get used, you forge those bonds. It might take some people 20, 30 years. We condense that into maybe 2 or 3 seasons and you get a real close bond. So, Moz, I'm going to start with you. Who's your favourite roommate?
Probably not surprised, but Terry Newton. He was my best mate in the sport. So he was from Wigan, I'm from Salford. We travelled over every day together, and even when we weren't travelling, we got a place together. So we was roommates as well. So just a very, very funny man, character.
Have you got any memories?
Nothing.
Anything you want to share on this platform?
Well, he was fantastic for a night out. He was great. Loved a drink. Loved a good time. But you always knew. We were talking about teammates and having each other's back. You knew for a fact that he would look after you given any opportunity. So, but just his quick wit. You know, he'll admit himself he wasn't the smartest academically, but his tongue was so sharp when it come to the banter, and that's what you need in rugby league. And it weren't until he left actually. While we're on the subject, I didn't realise he'd come out with this saying, but it was a belter. He said, "We're not just teammates, we're best mates at Leeds," and it was very true. We was very close. 98, 99. It was, and you need to be in rugby league. It's a sport where you've got to have each other's backs. You've got to look after each other, and I know clubs do a lot of team bonding pre-season, and it does help you out throughout the season.
And my memory serves me well. Most of the nights out with Tez Newton, most of them ended abruptly, didn't they? with somebody getting launched out of wherever we were. But yeah, good lad, Tez Newton. And somebody who, I know, he would rely on you, and he would probably have loyalty above anything else, wouldn't he?
He would.
So, Lunty, favourite teammate, favourite travelling partner, favourite roommate?
Favourite roommate would be Scott Moore. So I got to know Scott Moore when I was at the scholarship under 15s at St Helens. He was 14, so he's a year younger than me. And we got on really well, and Paul Clough was in that team as well. So we sort of bonded. And then obviously Scott kicked on with the first team at Saints. And it wasn't until 2009 that we got put back together at Huddersfield. And it was the 2012 Challenge Cup final when we played you guys. We were staying down at this big fancy Roman Spa hotel. And I can always remember we had Keith Mason's phone, and we got into his phone and we went on his Facebook, and Scott goes, "Here, take a picture of me bum all, and we'll put it as his profile picture." So we did it, and we're there. Keith's in the room next to us. He's talking to these girls on Facebook, and then all you hear was Keith going nuts. "Who's done this?" And me and Scott, you just in the room laughing our heads off. And I can always remember the morning of the final. Actually, the Dizzy Rascal song came on. Some people think I'm bonkers, and there's me and Scott dancing around, just 2 young kids, 21 and 20, dancing around in the hotel room with just our dressing gowns on. And yeah, that's a memory that'll last a lifetime.
I remember when he made the England squad. It was 2009, and he was rooming with Richie Myler, who was only 17, 18 at the time, but he absolutely terrorised him, and he bought went to the French markets. We're playing over in Paris, and he asked, could he buy this fish's head? And said, why do you want that? You can't eat that. I said, no, don't want it to eat. So we bought it, but put it in Richie Myler's bed and just took the sheet over it. So then obviously when he come to get in bed, there was a fish's head. But I thought he was a bit of a character, that lad, and he was a good addition to the squad.
Yeah, I'd tell you what, I bet a lot of people have got stories about Scotty that they could tell you.
I wanted to just touch on something. We often talk in sport about routines, don't we? And how sometimes those routines and that set pattern that you've got before games, being away, is an integral part of your preparation. Did you ever come across any weird ones?
Not really. I mean, rugby lads are very similar. Their preparation, and to be fair, rugby lads will just get told what to do by the coaches, by the S&C. You're doing this, okay. There's very little arguments there, but no, nothing that springs to mind. Really.
Vomiting, not to degrade things. There's always a couple of spewers in the dressing rooms.
Sorry, Lee Breers was the worst for that, and it did just put you off. And then you'd have a chat with him. Why'd you do that? He says, I've always done it, and I probably always will do. It's just nerves before the game, but in the end, he had to go. There's a separate changing room. You had to go in there, just stop putting people off.
It's funny you said that, because I play, again, Great Britain, I'm talking about Great Britain, but I played my first game and it had mega stars of the game of the time, Martin Ifeyer, Gary Connolly, Alan Hunt, and Jonathan Davis in the back line. And Jonathan Davis, who was an iconic rugby player, never mind rugby union, rugby league. My Great Britain debut, he was in the toilet spewing his ring. So I was not nervous. I never got nervous before games, but anxious and just thinking, just want to get out there and get it done now. And I've got the most experienced player in the room spewing up. And so Breezy might have inherited it off
Mate, yeah, because he would have played with him, wouldn't he? Yeah. Wanted him. But another one, we went down to nerves, but Craig Innes, when he'd finished the game, he used to go straight to the toilet.
Yeah, he did,
light a fag up and, and have a dart, as they say.
Yeah. What about you, Lunty?
We had some good comical ones at Hull KR. So obviously the year that we were relegated, we really gelled together that year, because obviously we were pushing for promotion, and two spring to mind are Thomas Mins, that was at Leeds as a youngster, Minsy, and Ryan Shaw, a Barrow lad, fellow Cumbrian. So Shawy, you just used to go in and you sat there naked. No matter who came in, sometimes, as you know, early on, the corporate sponsors, they'll be getting shown around more, then he'll just be sat there, just everything hung out, not a care in the world. He was brilliant, him.
Was his confidence justified without lowering the tone?
Oh, it was.
Well, there you go. That explains a lot.
Yes,
He's a big lad. He's a big lad.
If you're going to be confident, you have to back it up, don't you? And he certainly backed it up. And then there was Minsy. He was just, as you well know, dancing around, singing, emceeing. But again, going back to the changing room environment, I think everyone respects each other. So as long as, you might have someone like Scott Griggs was so methodical in everything he did. He was, if I could say, if anyone OCD, it was Grixie, so what you do, you just let Grixie be Grixie. You don't go in his space and you don't go in anyone else's space, and you soon learn who you can have a bit of a joke and banter with. But again, you've got to be careful in it, because if you're too happy, before the game, you're messing around, you go and get pumped. Yeah. That gets used against you, and it don't get used against you.
And you're upsetting people as well, aren't you?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're upsetting that harmony. So it's very important to understand other people's rituals and what they go through and how they prepare, and just like I say, give them their space if they need space, and joke around with the ones that you can joke around with. My
pre-match buddy was little Rob Burrow, because
brilliant.
I needed to bring myself down, because if I got into my own head, I'd end up not headbutting wall. I was too worked up about it. So I needed to, as you get later on in your career, you learn how to flick the switch, don't you? Rather than spending the whole day building yourself up, getting up to the levels that you need to be, you could flick the switch. So I used to I'd say relax, but it was probably more like messing about.
Yeah.
So I used to take me and little Rob would go and get a ball, and we'd be just passing and just. He was, it was like constant jibber jabber with Rob, weren't it? So I used to listen to him laugh and give him a bit back, but I used to pull him to one side, because when you play for a team that's 40 miles away, the first part of your day is getting to where you're supposed to be. So traffic used to be a bit of an anxious part of my day. So I'd get here at Headingley, I'd get here maybe sometimes at 4 or 5 o'clock. Yeah. Then I'd get a massage. Then I'd have a bath. Yeah. Then I'd get strapped up, and sometimes by the time people and lads are turning up to get ready, I've got my shorts on,
You're
I've got
ready
my
to go.
strapping on, and I'm ready, me. I'm like that, I'm going.
You've already
right.
played the game in the changing rooms, then you also feel like flat, don't you? Like like you say, that nervous energy, you've burnt actual energy off.
That was one of my roles as captain when I was at Warrington, just to say, right, it was always half an hour before kick-off, before warm-up. Before that, you could do what you want, messing about, and I was guilty of having the crack, making jokes and that, because I was the same as you, Baz. I like to keep myself relaxed and jovial, really. But as soon as half an hour before kick-off, right, boys, switch on now, and it was everyone knew the rules. Right, music was off, and then it was switch on time then. But yeah, but you're right. They do know when to flip the switch and when to be serious and when.
Again, we used to have some players that literally 40 minutes before a kick-off, they'd still be fully clothed. And I'd be sat there all strapped up, ankles done, ready to go. And again, it's just one of those things. And then all they did was, right, 10 minutes left. Right, lads, in 10 minutes, AirPods gone, iPhones down, music off. We're in game mode, and that was it. Everything just, it's like a switch went off and everyone was just on it then.
Right, so let's get into today's topic. I want to talk about teamwork and what really makes a team tick. The loyalty, the clashes, and the moments that turn teammates into family. You talked about it with Terry Newton. What does the word team and what does the concept of team really mean to you, Moz?
I think rugby league, you need to be as close as possible in this sport compared to any other sport in the world. Only because if you don't look after your teammate, you can get hurt, seriously hurt, and it's that. I'm not being dramatic here. It's if you say come with me and he's not with you, bang, you could end up with a, I don't know, broken nose, broken cheekbone, something like that. But that's how important it is to rugby league to be trustworthy and to trust your teammate. You've got to be like brothers. As I say, otherwise you could potentially get hurt. So I think it's great that pre-season, everyone goes on about how hard pre-season is. The more you train at an intense level, the closer you become. If you can hopefully get a trip away, it's great, living in each other's company. And again, the more experiences you can have together, the closer you forge that friendship. Not every club can afford a trip away, but we were quite fortunate. We used to get took away quite regular. And it's essential for the season ahead that you spend that time together and forging them friendships.
How deep do those bonds go?
They're very deep, very deep. So for me, teamwork is absolutely everything to me. It goes back to my family when we sat down as a family at the dinner table talking. It's all about teamwork. It's people just think of like stars. If you want to be a star, if you want to be singled out, go play tennis or go play golf. Rugby league, especially in a teamwork, in a team sport, it's selfless acts that do it. Like Moz was saying there, the most important person on that pitch is the person next to you. Because if you miss a tackle, they're going to cover your ass. If you make a break, they're going to be there supporting you. If you get clocked off the ball, that person's going to, I bet you did that plenty of times in your career. Someone small got hit. The clocking off the ball and both of you would have done it, But again, it's one of those things.
But it's about roles in teams, isn't it?
Yes, roles in teams. Again, me being a 9 and then me 2 front rows, if someone hit me off the ball or took me out late, I'd expect me big front rows to go do something about it, and they didn't. I've got a story about, and I won't say the club or anything like that, but this is how deep a team is for me. It is a family because we had a young player who tried to take his own life. And he came into train the next day, and he got myself, another senior teammate, and told us, and nobody else knows to this day. And that for me epitomised the teammate that he did something that he would, thankfully he didn't go ahead with it, but he did something that night, and he was open enough to come and talk to us about it the next day. And thankfully, like I say, all good now. But for me, a team it's like an unspoken bond. Once you step on that pitch, it's very hard to describe for me, Moz. I don't know what it's like for you.
There's an expectation in there, and it's really difficult to put into words because you're at two extremes of the scale, aren't you? It's a really unforgiving place. You can't afford to put your head too far above the parapet. But there's a trust and a bond and a brotherhood that means if you are really struggling with something, if you go to the right person, because we are so in it together, will always try and help and sort things out and be there for one another. And that's a really sad story. That we've got examples of that. And Terry Newton is one that we have first-hand experience of. He perhaps out of the rugby environment because of actions and decisions he'd made leading up to his suicide, didn't feel like he could come and talk to us. And that's something I know it'll live with you. And it's something I look back on, because if he'd have been in the environment, if he'd have been in the family and the brotherhood, he might have actually said, look, I'm struggling, or I'm upset, or I don't know where to go. I'm feeling low, or whatever.
And I think that's probably what separates the top teams from the bottom teams, the successful teams and the not so successful teams, because if you really go down to it, it's the nitty-gritty stuff. It's not all the big flair, the fancy stuff. It's all about, working hard for each other, being there for each other. And again, when you look at the top teams, they'll come down to the brotherhood and how strong that bond is.
Yeah. You've been in a few teams, Moz, so it's probably a difficult question to ask, but I want you to try and remember the first time. So you've come from Eccles, Salford Roosters, they're called now. You come from Eccles, you're an amateur, you're in the environment, and you're amongst all your heroes. But at what point did you think to yourself, these are my family, these are more than teammates?
It was only in my third game, to be fair. So as a 17-year-old, I played first team, really skinny. And it was my third game. We played away at Wakefield. And in them days, the second row used to stand on the back line, where the props go now anyway. And I was taking the ball up, and I just kept getting, because of my size, kept getting put on my backside. And anyway, it was Richie Ayres, who's an ex-player, and all I did was, Moz, I'll switch with you now. Just a little moment like that, but I thought he's looking after me there, and it meant the world. So I knew there and then that your teammates have got your back, and they'll do out for you, to help you out. But it was quite a big moment, really.
There's an understanding, isn't there? And within any team environment, you've got 17 or 15 in the old days. You've got 17, and you've a squad of about 25. Everybody's important in different ways, and if you don't do your work, the halfbacks can't do their work and set up the tries, and the wingers and the centres and the fullbacks and the people who score the points, convert the tries, can't do their stuff. So everybody's reliant on one another. What about off the pitch? Is there a point where you thought that this bloke here, who is my teammate, I've got so much in common with him, he's very quickly turning into my best friend and my most trusted ally?
Yeah, that's easy. Neil Harmon, who I played with Neil here for a couple of years, but then he actually moved on to Bradford Bulls. Might have been Huddersfield then Bradford, but he had a place up in just off the ring road there, and he said, instead of travelling every day, why don't you stay here a couple of days a week? But the bond we had.
Did he charge you?
He did charge me.
Well, it was a business decision, let me tell you.
It was still worked out cheaper, but that's life, and it gave me an understanding of nothing's free. But he was a great teammate here first and foremost. He was a great lad. He's from St Helens, but he was great even when he moved on. I'm still
living in China now, isn't he?
Living in China, yeah. Still
school teacher,
close friends with Neil. But he was great, and to have a senior player person like that in your life, it was. I wouldn't say father figure, that's a bit dramatic, but he was certainly like a mentor, role model. Yeah. He was fantastic, and you could argue some of the things he taught me weren't as professional as they could have been, but it was great as a young lad, dead exciting, living in Leeds and playing, rugby league for a profession was, he was great to have on your side.
And Lunty, what about you? When did you first be in a team environment and have somebody at the side of you that turned from a teammate to a trusted ally and a mentor?
For me, it was James Donaldson, and it wasn't until I came down with sepsis. So Dono is a fellow Cumbrian, so I've got to be, obviously, I'm a little bit biased that way. But I never knew Dono growing up as a kid. He was actually from Wathbrow, so obviously up in Cumbria we call them jam eaters and whatnot. And when I signed at OKR, we travelled together, so he lived up at Birstall, so I was still in Murfield. And again, when you're spending loads of time with each other, yourself, when you travel with Kev, you travel with Tez, you get to know each other, you get to know each other inside out. And it wasn't until I got really, really ill with sepsis, and I got put into an assessment ward, and they thought I had bacterial meningitis. And for 3 days, nobody could come see me. I had to be isolated. And during them 3 days, it was my son's birthday as well. So I felt really, really low. And there was only 3 people that came and see me from the rugby team. Dono was one of them, and he was the first one. And little things like that, when you're down and you're out and you're feeling the worst you've ever felt, you're rock bottom. Dono was there for me, and sadly, Dono's just recently done his 4th ACL, so I always check in and whatnot. So Dono for me is he doesn't know what that meant to me.
And it's all part of the process, isn't it? We talk about the changing room environment, but it's the work environment, the things that you get taught, and you inherit a certain set of values and morals. You try to interpret them, put your own spin on them, and pass them back on to the next lot of people that you have an influence on. So Dono sounds like a really good influence on you, because I think you said it, Moz, about it's not just about the pitch, it's not just about the training pitch, it's sometimes travel, but when you get deep into the bonds and the commonalities that you've got with somebody, you realise that actually I weren't keen on you before, but the more time I spend with you, the more I realise that we're quite aligned.
Yeah, the biggest person in rugby league that had the biggest influence on me as a player was Kev Sinfield. Obviously, in 2012, I wasn't getting in the team at Huddersfield. I think I was 24. I just had a newborn. I had my eldest son Noah, and I wasn't getting picked. And obviously, all we want to do is play, don't we? There was guys in front of me. I was getting 10 minutes here on the bench and 10 minutes there, and then the loan spell came about potentially coming here, and I was very fortunate again to travel with Kev. So I met Kev up at Erney Top, and I spent a lot of time with Kev. And he, like I say, when you say teamwork, there was always me and my brother together. Like when my mum and dad split up, it was always me and my brother. We used to go everywhere together. And then my brother moved to Australia, and then sort of my rock had gone, and I was at Huddersfield not playing. I sort of lost my way a little bit, and I came to Leeds, and then gelled with Kev, and he was just reminding me of my older brother. He was that person that I could go to. I felt safe in his presence. And a lot of people they see Kev and they just see this super ultra professional person, but he's got a wicked sense of humour. He's got that dark side to him that I'm very prevalent and lucky to see. And yeah, Kev, he's had a massive impact on me because the way he carries himself.
Can you remember, I know I'm challenging here, can you remember a specific conversation or a specific problem that he helped you solve?
I can just remember the first week that came, he just said, Lunty, just listen to me. I'll guide you around. Don't panic. And I was I'd come into this.
Don't panic's good advice.
Yeah, don't panic. Yeah, because I'd come from Huddersfield, come into this star-studded side at Leeds, and it was just like having a coach on the pitch. He just literally directed everyone, and I ended up getting the supporters man of the match as well. So
brilliant.
Yeah, just like I say, just having his presence around. A little story, we were actually in the lounge, and I was with my eldest son at the time, and watching a game, and Kev walked in with his wife and his kids, and Noah's just, his eyes lit up. He was like, there's Kev. I said, oh yeah. So obviously everyone goes over, shakes Kev's hand, and then sort of Kev sees me, and we smile, and he comes right over, gives me a big cuddle. And then we have a little chat, and I got a picture with Noah, and Noah goes to me, he goes, oh, you do know him, don't you? I was like, yeah, of course I do. I told you that, but they didn't believe me until that. And that's again.
I don't understand why people are suspicious of you. Do you tell many lies? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, but we know them, bro.
Yeah. Moz, you've had a brilliant career, and you've had many, many highs. But I know that there's been times when you've been out of favour, you've been injured, and inevitably when you're that talisman for your team, and you're making big shots and big tackles and turning games on those moments, inevitably you get those wrong because you're willing to put yourself out there. Who did you turn to when things like that? But when you had occasions like that, who did you get on the phone to?
Well, when I was playing Australia, it was family. I'd ring them and sound them out. But to be fair, there wasn't that. I mean, there was quite a few suspensions, but they weren't really. It didn't affect me profoundly.
So you had self-talk, you had confidence in your own direction.
And I was very thankful that Ricky Stewart, who was my coach for 5 years at the Roosters, he made it clear and public that he's supported me, he's got me back, and he always used to say, because I was getting to the point where I was getting banned every couple of months, and it weren't just a little ban because of the loading system and that kind of thing, and similar offence. I was getting like three game bans for doing something you did every game, Baz. But anyway, I went up to him and said, look, I'll change the way I play the game because it's no good for the club, no good for me. And his face, no, I don't want you to. I want you to carry on the way you're playing. Obviously, don't go out your way to do it and try and be a bit more smarter. But your aggression is your strength. The players love playing with you. I love coaching you. Crack on, and that meant the world. That because I knew he had his backing.
And what about some of those personal struggles when you were off the pitch and you're uncertain of what was going on around you? Who did you go to then? Was that still family?
Yeah, it's still family. I mean, I was...
You've got two older brothers, haven't you?
Two older brothers.
One daft, one sensible.
Yeah, that's right.
So what does that make you?
Well,
Which one does that make you?
A bit in between.
The spoiled brat.
They were always a big influence on my career, particularly the daft one who played professional rugby league, because he was a big... inspiration, but I always spoke to them, and as I say, to be fair, I'd never got myself in such a tears was where I was, wound up and affected me mentally or anything like that. So I was quite fortunate. But when the big bands come along or the big injury or something like that, I always knew I had family to count on, so it weren't too bad.
It's quite important, isn't it, whether it's business or whether it's sport, that you've got things. They talk about that work-life balance model where you've got family, you've got you as a professional sportsman or how you make your living, and then you as an individual, that you just get things in balance. Then if things aren't going right, the other two aspects of your life just compensate, take over, and you can lean into that and not get too bogged down on what's going wrong. So it's good that you had that self-confidence, that awareness or lack of awareness, Moz, because I know you really well, that you didn't over-process too many things while you were in those difficult spots. We've covered off the brotherhood. We've covered off how those bonds are strong and we're willing to work hard for one another and step up. But inevitably, in an elite environment, there are clashes. There are times where you've got to stand up and say, Moz, that's unacceptable. Can you think back to a time in a high-pressure environment where you've had to do that yourself?
Yeah, so this was really difficult for me because as a child, I've always run from conflict. So coming into this environment, as a young kid, it was very tough for me. So it all stems back from when I was a youngster. So when my mum and dad split up, my mum turned gay. And so being from a small town in Cumbria where, there's not, we're going back, I'm going back 29 years now, so not a lot of gay people around, still frowned upon at the time, and being in that small environment, and then every time, lads would be talking about, they'd be talking about lesbians or they'd be talking about gay, I'd just fight or flight, and then I'd just run from any conflict, any sign of conflict. So that's something that I've had to work on. Not until I've got older and I've realised, and again, it's always, like I say, I've always sort of shied away from that confrontation, but now I embrace it now, everything that I've learned on the pitch. So again, I go back to the 2013 season when someone went out and they were drinking, and I went to the coach and with a couple of us and said, listen, this can't be done, if we want to... I just come back from Leeds after winning the grand final win. I was a champion. I wanted to come back and I wanted to kick on, and reach highs in my career. And that happened. And I was just like, I'm not letting that happen. I've just come back from a club where this is probably one of the greatest team there is, and I'm not letting that happen. And thankfully, it all went well. But again, you've got to be really uncomfortable in that. You've got to be comfortable in them uncomfortable situations to really grow.
And Moz, what about you as a leader? And I'm talking about probably the back end of your career at Warrington and at Salford. How did you manage conflicts? How did you interject?
To be fair, we didn't have a huge amount of issues. When lads were getting out of order, discipline, that kind of thing, I approached them, and to be fair, they were more often than not the older.
What was your style? What was it? Was it I'll sit down, I'll take him for a coffee, or...? Yep,
just nice and easy at first, and then I'd let them explain why they're going about the business the way they are, but there wasn't a huge of issues. But the issues we did have, they held their hand up and said, "Yeah, you're right. You've got me here. I'm going to sort it out." So there wasn't a chronic episode. But when earlier on in my career, like we played with here, and now I don't mind saying. I borrowed him some money. I went to Australia, but then he just did the wrong thing in terms of not keeping in touch, not basically took money and ran. But then the year after, or 2 years after, he made the international side, Great Britain, and everyone knew that I was what to give him a slap basically. But I went up to the coach and said, "Look, he done the wrong thing by me, but I won't let it for 1 minute interfere with team harmony, that kind of thing." And I went up to and said, "Look, we're going to sort out when the camp's finished, so everything's fine until then." Anyway, he did leave camp, but he didn't end up. But sometimes you've got to put things to one side.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And it's quite unusual for people to see us willing to scrap and fight and do everything we have to do on the field. But the underlying issues, personality-wise, are still there, aren't they?
Yeah.
There is conflict. There is people you don't actually like.
Yeah.
But as long as they're good at their job, you'll do what you need to do to make sure that they can excel on the stage.
You don't have to be absolutely best mates and being in each
Some
other's
people you
pockets.
are, but some people you think, I won't walk across the street if I ever see you again.
No.
You are so good at your job.
Yeah.
I'll do what I can to make it better.
Yeah, well, that's true. And what about you, Baz? Have you got any stories?
Yes,
about,
and I know what you're alluding to. It was just out here. What year was it, Moz? Would you say 2000?
I just left, so it was 2001, maybe.
2001. So there's an Australian forward called Jamie Matthew who I didn't personally get on with. I didn't connect with him in a way. I tried to, but I didn't connect with him, and that's fine. But he'd been chipping at me and he'd sort of been saying things behind my back, which I put to one side. And I think when I was younger, I would ignore things until they got to a boiling point and then there was an explosion. Now I'm more likely to pull the little things and say, listen, I don't like that, or do that slightly different. But that's maturity, innit? But at the time, there was a collection of small things and we came to blows out here before a semi-final. Did you not play? Had you already gone?
No, I'd already gone then, but I'd heard.
So you'd heard about it,
but
yeah. Anyway, we came to blows. I knew as soon as the kettle had switched off, I thought that's a bad move. That we played St Helens at Wigan, and basically I'd had a scuffle with him and I'd broke his chain. He'd said to me, "My kids bought that chain," which I felt bad because I'm a family man myself. But rather than getting in my car and going home and forgetting about it, we got on a coach. We stayed in a hotel. I was together with him for the next probably 48 hours. So every time I looked at him, I was like, ugh.
Didn't have any time to cool off.
Well, I just knew I'd got it wrong. I just knew at that point when the button had been pressed, I don't feel responsible for pressing it. Yeah. But at the point that button had been pressed and the explosion had happened, I knew I'd got it wrong. But I think sometimes you have to learn the hard way, don't you? We lost that semi-final. Whether we'd have won or lost if I hadn't done that, I don't know. But I look back and I think, yeah, I got that wrong. Right, we've got a little bit of time left, so we're going to dive into another fun topic. And the topic is comebacks. We've all been part of games. We've all watched games. We've all been in the sport a long, long time. We're in the dying minutes, the result changes, or a season is flipped on its head. We love a bit of drama and a bit of rugby drama in particular. So what's the most memorable comeback you've experienced, Moz?
I'd say it was 2002, playing down under for the Sydney Roosters. So we started, it was Ricky Stuart's first year as coach. We won our first game against South. It was South Sydney's first game back in the competition after they'd been exiled. That was a big game. Russell Crowe was there at the game. Won the first game, then we lost the next 5 games. So you could say that the season's going pretty terrible. We had a couple of injuries, suspensions, but then that was the year I had the back issue. So then as I was training, as I was playing, this constant pain wouldn't go in my back. So the last option was surgery. So I had the surgery. It was quite a big operation on the spine. The success rate was good, but it was still a chance that it wouldn't work. So then I missed 9 weeks with this back operation, but then the team, the form turned on its head, and then when I come back from the back operation, we won the last 8 games straight to play and win the grand final there in Sydney. So from a season it looked like it could be personally career changing to actually going on and win it. I'd say that was my favourite flip of a season, definitely.
I do remember that, because in 2002 went over to Australia, played Australia in Australia. We got our backsides handed to us, but you were in camp with us, weren't you?
I was in camp.
And you were worried about the surgery.
Yeah. So I might even have had the surgery then, but I know I was asked to go in camp, which was fantastic to spend time with you guys. But it was a disastrous only because the travel time from England to Australia. I think you got into Sydney on the Tuesday night and then had to play on a Friday or something like that. But then, as I say, it was great to see you and Teddy and all the guys. But then the actual result was 60-10, and then I remember the headlines in the Sydney Morning Herald the next day: R.I.P. International Rugby
Thanks for
League.
that, Moz. Cheers for that.
But that's how. I mean, they love a story over there. They're quite dramatic. But I thought, we've come over here. But they'd just come off playing a 3-game State of Origin series. They were all battle hardened, and then, as I say, the travel wasn't great. So then Great Britain got good-eyed in, and then on the Sunday I went to Melbourne with the Sydney Roosters, and they got about 50 put past them. So it was not a good weekend. It's
you.
It's me. I was the.
I always remember
bad
we were
luck.
warming up at the Sydney Football Stadium, and like I say, we're all over the place, all jet lag, woozy, just trying to get into that groove. And I always remember we were warming up. Some Aussie at the back of us said, "McDermott, you've got nothing." And then Tez O'Connor turned around and said, "Has he been looking at your bank account?" I was like, probably. But Lunty, what about you? What about a time in your career where it's gone from this to that?
So for me, it's the most memorable game, probably not the most memorable game in Super League history, but one of the iconic games of the £1 million game when we got beat by Salford.
On that, yeah.
So we were 8 points up with 4 minutes left. There was Tim Sheens in the stand.
You mentioned Minzy. Minzy was involved in that back end, weren't it?
Minzy played that year, Minzy broke into the team that year. And so playing in that game and then getting beat in Golden Point, and then just seeing the total carnage afterwards, people fighting on the pitch, everyone crying. And then I can remember being in the train station, and Tim Sheens rung me, and he said he was still going to come for the next season, and do I want to sign? And because, again, going back to what's been instilled in me through rugby, my integrity, my morals, I had a part to play in that team going down, and I wanted to rectify my problems. I had young kids at the time, and I want them to remember me by doing something. You've done something wrong, now fix it. And that year, I can remember we had a very shy squad, first of all, in the year. We had Chris Clarkson, who you probably coached as well. Yeah. He was number 10. He got given the 10 shirt. Yeah. We had Big Scrootsy. He'd signed from Wakey. He still honoured his contract and came. There was myself at 9. We had Ben Kavanagh, James Donaldson, and Jamie Ellis. He had a fantastic season. And we had Adam Quinlan at the back, at the fullback. So that year, even though we started winning and, we're grinding out results, and then towards the back end of the season, working under Tim, he brought in big Mossy Masoa, and he brought in Justin Carney, and just at the right time, we beat Lee at Lee. They got promoted, so they came up into Super League, we went down. We beat Lee in the Challenge Cup. That year, we nearly beat Salford in the Challenge Cup. We just got beat, and then playing Widnes, and we literally, I think we had 2 games left to spare. I think Warrington were in the bottom 8 that year. Right. We played Warrington the last game, but some of us needed surgery, so we just sat out that game. It was a dead rubber. When people talk about emotions about winning, it was more relief than anything.
Yeah.
That when that whistle went against Widnes, it was more relief than when you
celebration.
That celebration, it was just, and then it was just like a massive emotional roller coaster. And to see now where Hull KR was, I was at the grand final, and to see them where they are now, the treble winners, and it's such a good comeback story, where they were as where they were as a team to where they are now, it's unbelievable.
It's an incredible journey that Hull KR have been part of over the last decade or so. And when you've been part of that, when you've been down at the bottom, you celebrate with them at top. But communication and trust is all part of that growing process. But how did it manifest itself for you with communication and trust?
So I was given the captaincy that year. So that year I actually needed a shoulder operation. But if I had surgery, it would have put me out about 4 months. I would have missed the first part of the season. So what we decided to do was just inject it and play on painkillers all year. So for me, I trust in the club, I trust in the players, and hopefully that I earned their trust as well as players. You know, I was their leader, so I showed right from day dot I was willing to train through pain to try and rectify it. And that year, like I say, we all gelled together. We worked hard for each other. You know, there was obviously, you can imagine what stick we got from the black and whites over the west side of the city. So yeah, that trust is massive because, again, going back to the individual stuff, and you know they've got your back. You know, I remember Scroots, he was phenomenal that season. He was just an absolute tank in the middle. Again, Robbie Mullen, he came through that year. He was absolutely brilliant, and you could just rely on everyone. You know, Ryan Shaw on the wing who got the winning try. Everyone just played their part, their little part, as a collective, as a team, that we produced a promotion-winning season.
Moz, during that time where you were recovering from your operation, you know, we'll talk about the influence of the dark cloud of a succession of defeats. What was the trust from your teammates and the communication like?
Ricky Stewart was big on everyone sticking together, you know, throughout the win or lose, that kind of thing. And they did come right to our house, the boys, and, you know, there was a great camaraderie, a great team spirit, but we did have a few injuries. But then once we started getting the boys back, myself included, that's when you could see a bit more belief in the boys. Anyway, once we started winning and then winning, and it was a knock-on effect then. But I'd like to think we didn't lose hope all year, even though we had a terrible start. We did keep faith in the coaches and what we were trying to achieve, and ultimately we ended up going all the way.
But the fact that you weren't isolated, people were talking to you, were still kept in.
Yeah, still kept in.
The team meant that when you were ready and available, you felt like you took your natural place. It's interesting, actually. I think I mentioned on one of the other podcasts, when I joined Oldham, first night out after my debut, you know, I'm at the bar with my heroes, but my mates from my amateur club are across the pub, and I went to walk over, and one of the lads said, "No, you're with us now, we're your mates." When I went to Wigan, I got injured about halfway through the season and continued to go out because I thought it was an expectation that you kept with the lads, and you went to the games, you celebrated, you commiserated together. I remember one of the lads at Wigan saying, "No, listen, you need to focus on getting yourself right. Don't be getting out on the drink with the lads.
Yeah.
Get in the gym, make sure you're fresh the day after a game, and you're in the gym early, and the coaches are seeing you trying to make an effort to get yourself right." And it was two contrasting philosophies. Probably Oldham's success rate and Wigan's success rate determines which one was the best way to go. But success, failure, it's all intrinsically linked in it, because every Rocky story, Rocky doesn't start by winning, does he? He starts down at the bottom, and that journey is the biggest part of the lesson. Some brilliant stuff there, lads. I really enjoyed the comeback chat. So let's get into the takeaways. Let's deal with, first of all, selfless acts in a team. We talked about sometimes you're in front, sometimes you're tucked behind. Lunty.
Yeah, I can always remember when I was a plumber, an apprentice plumber, and the guy that I was working with, he couldn't drive. So I used to do all the driving. Again, I used to be up early, but again, together as a team that we worked together, and again, looking in the boardroom and whatnot, it's all about the team and, you know, encouraging people and supporting them in the right way and not putting your own agenda before theirs.
Moz, teamwork, it's integral that you do your bit to make sure the outcome is a positive one.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can take so many points from the game of rugby league into the business world, and yeah, you've got to be selfless. You've got to do what has to be done for the sake of the team rather than yourself. So you've got to sacrifice. You've got to just basically do what has to be done.
One of the important parts of that place is honesty, isn't it?
Yes.
How important is it to be honest in the working environment?
Hugely important. Again, whether you're on the rugby pitch or the working environment, it's that everything's the same process behind it. You got to be honest. You got to have them honest chats that, like we talked about, that are uncomfortable, but you sometimes have to have those chats. And it's again just getting comfortable in them uncomfortable situations.
And Moz, taking responsibility for your actions is ultimately going to earn you the trust from the people around you.
Without a doubt, you need to be accountable, and that's on the training field, on game day, but in the boardrooms, just how you go about your business, you need to do the right things that need to be done for the sake of the big team.
So anybody listening to this, lads, anybody listening to this thinking they want a positive environment, they want people around them that are contributing to the direction that they want to go forward in, what advice can you give them?
You got to be close, you got to be tight. Try and get yourself out of the everyday working life. If it's your family, have experiences away, but the more time you can spend each other's company, it's only going to be beneficial for the team.
And going on the company, it's very important, the company that you surround yourself with.
Choose them wisely,
yes,
yeah.
Because again, you might have some negative influences, and there could be just that little devil, just chirping away, and they'll probably, again, they want you to do what they want to do. So it's and again, going back to the team, it's that selfless acts. You're doing stuff to better other people rather than yourself.
And then lastly, how important is communication in the working environment, and particularly listening to others?
Especially from our background, you've got to, when you're communicating, you've got to communicate different to other people. Again, respect their needs, respect their boundaries, and be mindful the way that you deliver it, because the way that you might get the best out of someone is maybe give them a bit of a grilling and pump them up, whereas the next person might go in the shell and go down. So you've got to know the individual.
Yeah, totally agree. You've got to know your individuals. You've got to know the strengths of each team member, the weaknesses, and work on that, and as a team, together, everyone achieves more, Barry.
Well, we got there, didn't we? The dream team are getting a little bit better at this. Thank God, Moz, you got through it. You've had a couple of hefty days in Spain.
I have, yeah. My old mate Carlo Napolitano, best mate since we were kids. He's been to see his mum and dad in Spain.
I think that's for your life story,
Right,
Moz. I just said that you were slightly hungover.
Yeah.
Lunton, you did well, you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been really good, and need a break now because he stinks of piss.
Thank you for joining us on Changing Rooms, brought to you by our good friends at Lect. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.